squiggly, squirty bugs. They feel so soft and natural. You get 4 different colors of goop and special paints. Make charming lizard pins or spider rings. You can collect them or spread them around.
How did a toy that lets kids cook rubber bugs in their kitchen become one of the biggest crazes of 2 different generations and then almost completely disappear? Now, for millions of kids, creepy crawlers wasn't just a toy, it was an experience. The smell of heated plastigoop, the glow of the oven, and the excitement of peeling a freshly made spider or lizard from a metal mold made kids feel like mad scientists running their own secret laboratory. It was weird, it was messy, and just dangerous enough to feel exciting.
Creepy crawlers. Creepy crawlers. Creepy crawlers.
Creeping and crawling.
Yucky, yucky, squirmy, wormy.
Creepy crawlers. Plastic goop.
Bug brigade. Creepy crawlers.
But despite becoming a massive hit not once but twice, creepy crawlers eventually vanished from store shelves. So what made these rubbery monsters such a phenomenon, and why couldn't they survive? Well, the story begins long before the 1990s. Now, most people remember creepy crawlers as a product of the slime-filled Nickelodeon era, but the original version actually dates back to 1964. Now, at the time, Mattel introduced a toy called the Thing Maker. And unlike most toys of the era, the Thing Maker wasn't something kids simply played with. It was something they used to create things. Now, the setup was surprisingly simple. Kids poured liquid plastigoop into metal molds and placed them onto a heated plate. And after a few minutes, the liquid hardened into rubber creations that could be peeled out and played with. And one of the most popular versions focused on bugs, spiders, snakes, and creepy creatures. And that set became known as creepy crawlers. Now, what made the toy special was the process itself. You see, kids weren't buying finished toys, they were making them. And every creation felt personal because it came from their own hands. The experience felt creative, it felt empowering, and unlike anything else on the market. Of course, there was one small problem. The original Thing Maker was incredibly hot. The heating plate reached temperatures that would be considered completely unacceptable by today's standards. Burns were common. Parents worried, safety concerns grew. But for many kids, that danger was part of the appeal. It made the experience feel real. This wasn't a toy pretending to be a machine, it actually was one. And for years, creepy crawlers remained popular. Kids filled kitchens and basements with homemade rubber bugs, while Mattel expanded the line with additional molds and themes. But by the 1970s, attitudes toward toy safety had changed dramatically. Products involving high temperatures and chemicals faced increasing scrutiny. Mattel attempted to redesign the product with safer features, but the magic just wasn't the same. Eventually, the original Thing Maker disappeared. For years, it looked like creepy crawlers had become another forgotten toy from a different era. And then came the 1990s, and suddenly, the timing was perfect. Now, the early 1990s were obsessed with slime, gross-out humor, and weird toys. Kids loved products that felt messy, disgusting, and, of course, rebellious. And Nickelodeon was exploding in popularity. Goosebumps books filled school libraries. Everything gross was cool. Now, a company called Toymax saw an opportunity. They realized that creepy crawlers had something most old toy brands didn't have: nostalgia. Parents remembered it, kids would love it. All they needed to do was modernize the concept. So, of course, they brought it back. Now, the new creepy crawlers often looked futuristic and over the top, perfectly matching the style of the decade. And most importantly, it was much safer than the original. Protective features reduced the risk of burns while still preserving the core experience. Kids could still pour the goop, heat the molds, and create their own monsters. And Toymax understood something crucial. The smell mattered. Because that sweet chemical scent had become part of the memory. It was tied directly to the experience. So, the company made sure the new version captured that same feeling. And when the reboot launched in 1992, kids responded immediately. The toy felt unique because it wasn't passive, it required participation. Kids weren't just opening a package and playing with a finished product, they were creating something from scratch. And that difference helped creepy crawlers stand out in a crowded market. But Toymax wasn't satisfied with selling an activity toy. They wanted a franchise. And in the 1990s, successful franchises needed cartoons. So, in 1994, an animated creepy crawlers series debuted.
I'm just a normal kid.
what they are.
The show followed a teenager named Chris Carter who accidentally brought his creations to life using a special machine. His bug-like heroes battled villains and protected the world from strange threats, and the cartoon transformed the brand. Suddenly, kids weren't just making random bugs, they were creating characters. And the bugs had names, they had personalities, and they had stories. And the toys became connected to a larger universe, giving kids another reason to collect them. And the strategy, of course, worked. The line expanded rapidly, new models appeared, playsets arrived, licensed characters joined the lineup. And for a few years, Creepy Crawlers became one of the hottest toy brands of the decade. The combination was powerful. The toy offered creativity, the cartoon provided storytelling, and the overall brand perfectly matched the gross-out culture of the 1990s. For a while, it looked unstoppable. But underneath that success was a problem that affects many toy crazes. Novelty eventually wears off. Part of what made Creepy Crawlers exciting was how different it felt. The first time a kid watched liquid goop transform into a rubber spider, it felt magical. The 10th time was, well, still fun. The 100th time just wasn't quite as exciting. And at the same time, competition was increasing. The toy industry was moving quickly. New crazes appeared constantly. Kids who had been obsessed with Creepy Crawlers in 1993 were already chasing new trends a few years later. And then the cartoon ended. And that loss mattered more than it might seem. You see, in the 1990s, cartoons weren't just entertainment. They were marketing engines. Every episode reminded kids why they cared about the toys. And once the show disappeared, the brand lost its most powerful source of visibility. Sales began to slow. Toymax tried introducing new themes and licensed products, but the momentum just wasn't the same. And at the same time, an even larger threat was emerging: video games. By the late 1990s, kids were increasingly spending their time with consoles and electronic entertainment. And compared to rapidly advancing technology, making rubber bugs started to just feel a little less revolutionary. The world was changing, and Creepy Crawlers struggled to keep up. The decline accelerated after Toymax was acquired by Jakks Pacific. New versions continued appearing throughout the 2000s, and various attempts were made to modernize the concept. Some incorporated popular licensed brands, and others introduced updated designs. But none of them really captured the same magic. And the problem wasn't the product itself. The problem was timing. The original succeeded because it arrived during an era when hands-on creativity felt exciting and unusual. The reboot succeeded because it perfectly matched the gross-out culture of the 1990s. But later versions entered a world increasingly dominated by digital entertainment, and that world was much harder to crack. Even ambitious plans struggled. Proposed movie adaptations stalled. New concepts never gained traction. The franchise slowly faded from public attention once again. But despite all of that, people still remember Creepy Crawlers. That's because the toy represented something that feels surprisingly rare today. It was physical, it was creative, and it demanded patience. Kids had to wait for the molds to heat up. They had to carefully pour the goop. They had to watch the transformation happen in real time. The process was just as important as the final product, and that's why the memories remain so strong. People don't just remember the bugs, they remember the smell, the heat, the anticipation, the feeling of opening the oven and revealing something they had made themselves. So what caused the rise and fall of Creepy Crawlers? Well, the rise came from turning creativity, experimentation, and just a little bit of danger into an unforgettable experience. The original version gave kids something they had never seen before, while the 1990s reboot perfectly captured the culture of its era. But the fall came from changing technology, shifting trends, and the simple reality that novelty just doesn't last forever. As entertainment became more digital, the hands-on experience that once felt revolutionary started to feel a little old-fashioned. But, of course, the legacy never disappeared, because for the kids who grew up with it, Creepy Crawlers wasn't just a toy. It was a laboratory. It was a monster factory. And for a few minutes at a time, it made every kid feel like a mad scientist creating something impossible. And that's the kind of memory that doesn't fade, no matter how many years pass.